right, Neil Timmins, welcome to Pave the Way Podcast. It is exciting to have you on here.
Greg, it's good to see you again, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me on your show a couple weeks ago, man. I've been a big fan of your show since you've been putting it out. So we've known each other through the real estate circles for the last what was that? Probably 3 or 4 years.
Almost going on 4.
Yeah.
Almost.
So where did we connect? Did we connect at a sales training seminar?
We connected at a sales training seminar in Dallas. Like that was like 3.5 roughly years ago, 4 years ago.
Got it. Okay, so we did that, and then I think, were you in Investor Fuel too for a little bit?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. That was literally right when I was getting into, I'd done some investment stuff, a handful of fix and flips, some rentals, and then got into the sales training piece. You know, the first thing of course, is like, okay, I can do a whole bunch of stuff, but how do I just buy more stuff and buy it deeper? Because as long as I do that, I can figure anything out, figure the rest out as you go. Yeah, right. Yes. So that's where I was at the training. That's where you and I met.
Awesome. Well, it's been good to know you over the years. So I know you a little bit, like we don't know each other too well. So like, what were you doing before you were a real estate investor? Because you're in the Midwest, right? You're in Des Moines, Iowa.
In Iowa. Yeah. So I was an agent. I was a single family agent. Done that for lots of years. This is year 18, although I don't do it anymore, but that's how long ago I started. 18 years ago as an agent. Became the #1 Remax guy when I was 29 years old. And then, shortly thereafter, I was like, there's got to be more than doing this. And found my way into investing.
Interesting. So you were are you born and raised in Iowa, or did you
born and raised here? Went to school in Nebraska, so University of Nebraska Omaha. Played football. That's how I ended up there. Every day for 3.5 years. I graduated early. I drove by Warren Buffett's house every day. So
I've been to Omaha before. I know. Yeah.
Big inspiration. Just, Omaha is everything Warren Buffett. And so learned just a lot from that world, what he would say, read it, follow everything he ever put out. It was really, really cool stuff.
That's awesome, man. So you're a Midwest guy, born and raised. So now I have a few questions on the real estate agent thing, and then we'll go into the investing. So you said you eventually became the top Remax agent at age 29.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of real estate agents in America. I bet you there's a handful of them listening right now.
Sure.
What were you doing on a daily basis that separated you from everyone else to eventually get you to be the top agent in the game?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? You and I talked about this on mine. It's Darren Hardy, 1% every day. How do I get better every day? So, my first year in the business, for example, long before I became the #1 agent, I worked 355 days. Okay. Well, that's how it gets done. You just work a lot and then continue to focus on what are the right activities. So not just hours, but what activities, and then just do the right activities a lot. And then eventually it pays off, for me. And that meant, what are my leverage points? Well, marketing became a leverage point. People became a leverage point, built a team. And there was a multitude of other leverage points, just right. How can I pull those levers and ultimately do more?
That's amazing. And it's so funny how you said that. Cause like, so many people think it's more complicated than it needs to be. It's like, if you just spend your time all day doing the right things and you track your progress, like it's impossible to not succeed over time.
Yeah, correct. Well, you think about in that business, your time should be spent working with sellers, meaning interviewing, showing properties, writing contracts, negotiating contracts. That's it. There's 4 activities that produce dollars and cents. And that's it. So how do you get there? How do you build a team and structure around leveraging ultimately my time to do those 4 things?
That's man, you said it so well. And I remember in one of Darren Hardy's books, he talked about, he wore a stopwatch around his neck because when he was a real estate agent, because he's crazy, and he would hit the stopwatch every time he was doing one of the 4 critical activities. Yeah. And he said the first day he did that, he looked at his stopwatch and he thought he worked all day because it was a 12-hour day.
Yep.
It was like 22 minutes of like actual busy work. And he's like, holy crap, what if I just got this up to 2 hours a day? And he started doing that and he started cranking,
The results, it multiplies.
Amazing. So you did that. So you got your I guess your street MBA as a real estate broker.
Yeah, right.
Now, what was the transition like to go from broker to investor? Because a lot of brokers are running into deals left, right, and center. And like, we flip a lot of properties, and some of these agents, I'm like, why don't you just buy this? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. So how did you make that transition successfully? Because a lot of agents get stuck in their own way.
Yeah, no, great question. Well, so, I had some success. So that meant, for me, I had some dollars. And so it was like, all right, what do I do with this? And the stock market's really not for me. So it was, let's let me buy some property. I had fixed and flipped some over a period of time, and then eventually morphed my way into single family rentals. And then from there, it just was a kind of a snowball, if you will, rolling down the hill. It was like, all right, well, okay, well, if I can flip a property, make whatever, 25, 35 grand, whatever the number is, well, that's better than selling a house as an agent and making 6. So it didn't take long to go. Well, I can leverage my time real quick, in a much, and it can control my time. I'm not schlepping around at 8 p.m. at night showing people homes, or on Sunday afternoon, running open house. No, thank you. And so that's what I'm like. Eventually I got to a point where it's going, I'm just going all in on the investment piece.
Yeah, no, that's smart, because it's funny you say that, because we always still have agents list our flips.
Yeah.
And a lot of the agents that I work with they know what they're doing, but like, I'm like, if you're an investor, it's just because the objective is the same. You're transacting a piece of property, right? You're going to buy and sell a property, whether you're repping someone or whether you're the principal. Like, it's the same process. But if you just get the deal and do the deal yourself, whether you wholesale it or fix and flip it, your time per hour is so much more lucrative, and you're doing the same exact thing. And especially if you're wholesaling it, you really don't have a lot of risk. So it's like, if agents just learned how to convert maybe 10% of their leads into either wholesale deals or flips, they'd put another 100 grand in their bottom line without even changing a thing.
Totally. It's a totally different mindset. Yeah, that's really all it comes down. You ready for one thing relative to same thing what you just said? You said agents, you got agents who list your flips. I'm a real estate broker, run a small office. There's 6 of us. Everybody knows what they're doing. So we got this thing dialed in. I don't list my own flips. A year and a half ago, I brought an agent on to replace me. And so literally a year and a half ago, January last year, I retired as an agent. My wife and I'm serious. I popped champagne in my house. I said, sweetheart, I'm done being an agent forever. I'm never going to show a home. My key card to get into lock boxes, I had turned off. I can't even get in my own homes as an agent. Literally have to call my own agent, or you use the combination boxes. Yeah. Because Greg, my time's worth more. The time when you know how to properly employ it and revenue generating activities down another path, I can't afford to be an agent. I have to pay somebody else.
That mindset, when you develop it, it becomes powerful, because you look at everything you do and you say, if this is not $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 an hour activity, I'm losing money if I'm doing it myself.
You got to paint your own house, Greg?
No.
I mean,
I can barely put gas in my car now.
My banker, who's a friend, texted me 2 nights ago, and he sent me a picture of his little push lawnmower. He said, I must have gotten bored because I just mowed the yard and I did this. And I said, I know you'll believe this, but I've been in my home 12 years. I've never mowed my yard once. And in fact, we have a riding lawnmower. I don't even know how to turn the thing on. It's got some combination thing to turn on. I don't even know how to turn it on, because if I'm not doing either, doing things that I love, spending time with my kids, my family, doing things that I enjoy, if I'm working, and mowing your yard is a form of work.
Yes, it is.
That you get paid $20 or $25, $30. I don't know what the number is. We pay somebody to do it, right? It's either that or I actually get to spend time doing what I'm actually really good at and producing a whole lot more money per hour.
100%. That mindset is so powerful once you develop it. It does take a little bit of time if someone's new. So,
yes, it does.
So you jumped into the real estate game. You said you mentioned single family rentals, and you're in the Midwest now. So I'm a coaster. So I got an East Coast place to West Coast place, a very expensive area.
Right.
What do you look for in your area of Des Moines, which is that in the middle of Iowa or on the side of Iowa?
Yep, right in the middle.
Middle of Iowa.
Smack dab in the middle.
What do you look for when you're buying rental property to make sure that it's a good deal for you?
Yeah, great question. Yeah. So, I was fixing, flipping, wholesale, novation. I mean, I've done every owner finance, I've done about every strategy conceivable. Yeah. And it got to a point where it's like, you know what we're doing? It's a lot like being a realtor in this sense.
It is
that you're trading time for dollars. And so
just more dollars.
Just more dollars. Yes. So it's a job. It's a better job, but it's a
highly paying job.
It's a better job. Yeah. And so I got to the point where I was like, you know what, I need to start stacking these things up because I need some passive income. So, the first thought for all of us who are in the single family game is let's stack single families, because this is passive income. Low hanging fruit. Well, what I learned over a period of a couple of years is that single family rentals are anything but passive.
Yeah. You could say that again.
I've had everything I've got a segment of portfolio, which is solid B properties. Those do really well. And then I've got most of my properties solid C. And it is like banging your head against the wall. I mean, it is a challenging business. I've gone through 3 property managers over the course of maybe 12 months, 14 months, something like that. I mean, one thing after another, bad experiences, get rid of one, get another. They're twice as bad as the first one. They'd spend money like it was going out of style, like it's burning a hole in their pocket. Like anything that they would, a repair, something breaks and they got to fix it, they'd spend 2 or 3 times what I would ever spend, what you would ever spend to fix that issue. And I'm in the fixing business, right? From a fix and flip standpoint. They spend it like crazy.
The thing with the property managers, I actually manage my own. I don't have a ton, but I manage the small portfolio I have.
Yeah.
They're in a lot of the times, the bad ones, their incentive is completely opposite yours, right?
Correct.
So they get paid when it turns over. They make a markup on the construction.
Yes.
So it's such a convoluted, almost it is an adversarial relationship.
It's an adversarial relationship.
Yeah. And it's hard to win. Unless you have a real good property manager.
It doesn't make any sense that the relationship is the more you spend, the more they make. Like you're in the rental property business to make money. So their incentive, the more you make, the less they actually make. Well, those aren't aligned at all.
No.
No.
So you started doing single family rentals.
Yep.
What, did you have a breaking point where you said, you know what, maybe I should transition to multifamily? Like, how did you, if you've done that, like, when did you have that breaking point, if that was the case? And then what were your next steps to start to get the ball rolling in the other direction?
Good question. So I got to a point where, this was it just felt like I was in a, on a hamster wheel, just going nowhere, doing more of the same stuff. And not to say that this, the single family fix and flip wholesale, all good stuff, all profitable, right? All good stuff, but just the buy and holds, not going to get me to where I want to go. So something had to change. I literally stumbled into a property. I had it introduced to me by a broker, a commercial property, had some value associated with this. And, at that time I thought, you know what? I don't do commercial property.
Was it an apartment or was it an actual commercial?
No, it's an industrial building, 18,000 square feet.
Holy smokes. Okay.
Yeah, right. Industrial buildings occupied, tenant in it, occupied by the largest grocer in town. They run their bakery out of the place. So the property's introduced me, and I'm going through all the thoughts you get anytime you come up against something new. That's a little scary. I'm going, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I should do this. This is for like somebody else, somebody better educated, somebody smarter, somebody with more money, somebody better connected, somebody who, cut their teeth, who grew up in this commercial space. I took a little time and I thought, you know what I'm sure of is what I'm doing isn't going to get me to where I want to go. So something's got to change. So I pulled the trigger, bought the property. Like 3 months into owning that property, I thought to myself, you know what? I never hear from these people. This is a tenant I just don't hear from. And I was the property manager. So, there's like a light bulb. Like, I'm not real fast, but I'll get there eventually. Like, maybe I should do some more of this.
Interesting. So let's walk through that commercial deal, because I've done a commercial deal myself and it was a big learning curve. I ended up losing a little bit of money on it, but that's a story for another day. But what was the advertised purchase price, and what did you end up picking the deal up for?
I'm ballparking here. You stretched me 4 years back now. So I want to say about, I think at 800, it was either 800 or 750. And I picked it up for 700 or 750. One of those two.
How did you finance the deal?
Finance the deal. I put 200 down on the deal and financed the rest on a 10-year lock rate on a 25-year AM.
All right. So you didn't syndicate it. You just did the deal yourself, put your own money, you put the down payment down, and then the bank took back a balance.
Yep.
And what was the rent structure? Was it a triple net lease? Was it
triple net lease? Yeah. This is a long-term hold for me in the sense that, they signed this lease, and their lease with all the options was a 40-year commitment. 40. Wow. Now where they're well into options at this point, and I think I'm going off memory here. I think we have 12 years left on the lease. The lease is well below market value. So it's about 35%, maybe 40% of where the market value is today.
On that type of space with that type of space.
Yes. So for me, it was a long-term hold going whenever these people turn over or come up for renegotiation, this lease is going to catapult higher. And as a result, I get a capital multiplier effect. My building's going up multiple times.
Going on 40% potentially.
Oh, I think it'll go higher than that, because if we move rents, if rents double, that building's going to go 2x.
Double. 2x.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now,
so imagine putting $200,000 down, but get 2x on the principal. All right, on the value of the building. So if I put if 700 goes to 1.4, my 200, right? You follow what I'm saying there?
amazing. That's unbelievable.
It's huge, right?
Wow. Now, with that triple net lease, now what's your ultimate exit with this property? Are you going to just burr it, refi it, keep it, or are you going to?
Yeah. So all I did right now, I just hold on to the thing, and I'm waiting for the day to come. It cash flow, so it's okay. It's not great in the interim, but it's okay. I mean, it produces a positive return, and it's very hands off for me. And I got some park cash there that'll just wait for the day that these people, turn over. It's a great building in an incredible part of town. It's not going down.
That's amazing. Have you ever thought of I read a book called Confessions of a Real Estate Entrepreneur. You should check that.
It's actually my favorite book, and I can tell you a different story for a different day. But that book, I handed it to my brother when he said, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting into residential." I handed it to him. I said, "Don't get into residential. Read this book. It'll change your life." Like 30 days later, he was a commercial broker. He's been in the business now almost 6 years.
Jim Randall.
One of the best books I ever read.
I interviewed him on my podcast.
No.
Yeah, you got to listen to it. Yeah.
You got to make an intro.
Yeah. I will. Let me set a note to do that actually. Let's see. Connect.
Oh, I won't forget, Greg.
Oh yeah, no, I'll connect you guys on email.
My favorite book in the all of commercial real estate space.
Yeah. So the reason I brought that up is because he talked about a deal in that book where he did the similar deal like you. And he actually asked the tenant if they would be open to getting bought out of their lease because he knew that there was some big upside.
Yes.
So do you think your tenant would consider you buying them out of the lease so you can then re-rent that?
Yeah. That's a good question. Well, the answer is always yes. And then the question becomes, what's the figure?
Well, right? Of course.
Yes. Yeah. That would be an interesting one. I mean, they use it. It's a bakery. They're the largest grocer in town. They machine out cookies out of that freaking space. And they have a very deep real estate department. They know what kind of lease they got, and they know what it's going to cost.
Yeah.
Oh, they know what they got. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's I'm so happy you brought that up because I didn't even know you did that deal. And you talked about confession. I'm like, you said like commercial building. I said, oh, like Jim Randall's book just rang a bell in my head.
Yeah.
And I probably read that book, Neil, if you count the Audible, which it just got released on Audible like a year and a half ago, and the actual book. I have consumed that book at least 15 times, and I looked on my Amazon account. This is disgusting. I have bought over 10 copies that I've sent out to people being like, yo, you got to check this book out. That book inspired me to do a deal. And it motivated me because it was like, you and I are very familiar with buying and selling residential real estate.
Yeah.
And when you can take that same principle of buying wholesale and selling retail, and you can do it on a bigger building, it just makes it easier for us because we already understand the business. We're not like completely brand new to real estate. So
Correct.
If you're listening to the show right now, I highly encourage you to go pick up a copy of Confessions of a Real Estate Entrepreneur. It's so freaking good. And I love that book mostly because he tells so many good stories about
so many stories. The whole book is almost stories with which is gold all the way through them, lessons through the whole thing.
Yeah, I just re-listened to it like 3 weeks ago, and I was like, man, I got to get another deal under my belt. So anyway, back to your business and about you and whatnot. What are you now? You did this one commercial deal. Yeah. What are you looking for now when it comes to doing bigger deals? Because that really sounds like the direction you want to go down.
That was 4 years ago. That catapulted me down a path to go, all right, so how do I get more? And then really focus in on doing that. The next, like not that long after, 6 or 8 months later after that, I picked up a retail strip mall, did it with seller financing. And in fact, I just came full circle on that. We just closed on that 60 or 90 days ago.
To sell it or to?
Yeah, to sell it. So took it. I identified, it was easy for me to identify where can I add value in this thing, in this retail piece. It was like, let's cut these expenses. The income is fixed. All these people are in leases for a fixed period of time.
Or were they gross?
They had a mix of both.
Okay.
So what was happening on the expense side though, is that a bunch of the triple net leases were not being enforced. So they weren't paying, they just straight up weren't paying the CAM as they should have.
Yeah.
We're paying for insurance.
If someone's brand new.
Oh, very good. Common area maintenance. So imagine a strip mall and you got concrete out front, or you've got a parking lot that has to be plowed of snow. Well, that's a common area, and therefore you have to maintain it.
Yeah.
That gets billed back. Everybody, if you got 2/3 of the building, you're going to pay 2/3 of the share of the cost to remove that snow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. So
it just wasn't being done.
So the way that you added value on that was you basically just the rent was fixed, so you cut the expenses and you were able to drive the NOI up from
drive the NOI up, and then turn around a few years later, 2.5 years later, and went full circle, sold the piece off.
That's amazing.
Felt like we maximized the thing. Turned that one, bought it at, you ready for this? Bought it at 817 and went full circle at 1535. Yeah.
That's amazing. How much did you have to physically put into the value add piece of it? Did you have to put any money in, or it was just
no? I bought this thing with a seller finance piece on a short-term piece, and then I ended up rolling into a bank loan, put 10% down on that thing. So financed whatever that is, $82,000 from around 82,000. Yeah, right.
Oh my God.
Cash flowed from day one, and then came full circle on it.
Did he sell it to you at like market value at the time, or did he sell it?
No, sold at market value at the time. Yes.
See, that's the thing I like about commercial deals is if you know what you're doing, you can offer the seller their price, which is market value, because you know that it is current market value with
Correct.
what they're doing.
Yes.
But if you know the upside, you can, because in the flipping business, like you have to get a deal at a discount, like an arbitrage, distress sale, like that's the only way you can force value. You have to basically get the equity at a discount. With a commercial property, because the owner didn't add the value yet, they're only going to sell it for what it's truly worth now.
Yes.
That does not mean that if you do some things with that building, raise revenue or cut expenses, you do that work and you have all that upside, and you can sell that asset to someone and they have no problem paying market value because you brought the bottom line up. It's such a wonderful business, and it's the same process, right? It's just you have to have a little bit more of a different thinking process, but it's the same kind of concept of buy low, sell high, refi, whatever the case is.
Anybody in BRRRR, I mean, if you're in the rehab or in the BRRRR business, this lines up like perfectly. Perfectly, especially BRRRR. Those you got to manage. You got to buy it right. You got to rehab the thing, so you got to know what you're doing there. Now, I don't do a lot of physical rehab on the commercial properties, almost none in many cases. Yeah. So that we seek to add value to the property, but physical adding value is actually the lowest on my totem pole. I want the low hanging fruit. What's the 20% that I can do that I can add 80% of the value? And oftentimes it's how can I reduce expenses? Number one, if we can raise rents, great. Now, how do we do that? Some of the commercial properties, as you know, they're fixed leases for a defined period of time. Can't do anything there.
Yeah.
So you've got to focus in other areas to be able to, yeah. I got to focus on other areas.
Man, so one of my favorite stories of that, I'm going to just use that book again. So one of my favorite stories that he talks about in there is when he was in the beginning of the book, him and his partner bought this like shitty, like, big factory building.
Yeah, I think it was a mill.
He's from Connecticut. Yeah, he's from Connecticut, which is like an hour from where I grew up. So I remember when I first read it, I'm like, oh, this guy's from Fairfield County, like it's right down the street. Yeah. So he bought this building, to the listeners. He bought this building, and I think they paid like $2.8 million for it. The seller ended up doing some sort of seller finance. It was like a seller finance deal, and then he ended up buying the tenant out. Long story short, the use of the building was like this shitty, like factory outlet store. And he got the building empty. And I remember a broker called him and was like, hey, I heard you bought that big building in I think it was in Shelton, Connecticut. No, it was in Norwalk. And the broker said to Jim, the guy who wrote the book, he said, I have a tenant who wants to do a factory shopping lease.
Yeah. Yes.
And what he ended up doing was he turned this building into like this huge warehouse of retail stores. Yeah. And ended up selling it for like 10.6 million and made all this money.
It turned into a factory outlet.
Yeah. And he changed the entire building. And like he talked about that story. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so freaking awesome.
It's incredible.
And he started this trend, and the whole book is really about that stuff. But the whole point of the book is you got to buy value add real estate. Don't buy retail stuff. So anyway, back to you, Neil. I know we keep diverting.
No, it's all in the same vein. And it's exactly where I've gone the last handful of years to do exactly what you're just talking about, is finding things which I can buy at today's values, figure out how I can add value to the property and get a capital multiplier effect, multiply my equity in a property. either pull equity out, sell the property, which I don't love to do, but occasionally we do, to roll into another deal and just cash flow these things. And that's, from the first day I bought my very first commercial property, 3.5 years later, I became financially free because of commercial property.
Amazing. That's
Right.
amazing. So question on that now.
Yeah.
You mentioned you did 2 actual commercial properties, because a lot of people in your and I's circle, they go from single family homes to apartment buildings. And I've done those too, like small ones. Do you like apartment buildings, or do you like the commercial property where you don't have to deal? Because I have residential tenants, you have residential tenants. Listen, some of them are great, some of them are just a headache, and that's just the way it is. Do you like the apartments, or do you like to steer more towards the actual, commercial businesses renting from you?
Great question. So I mentioned two commercial properties on my own, several more now, that I picked up over the course of the last 7 years. I mean, I own in multiple asset classes. My comfort level is one of two things: either me buying in my backyard. So in Des Moines, Iowa, I got apartments. I got office. I've got medical office. I've got multiple industrial buildings. I've got retail. So I own multiple asset classes in my backyard. So that's number one in my backyard. Or number two is I buy with partners in their market, in their backyard, where they know the market, and I can absolutely get my head wrapped around the asset. So I just closed on one like 3-4 weeks ago with a partner out of Indianapolis, and we bought a self-storage facility.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you'll buy anything that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I really focus in on office, industrial, retail, mobile home parks, self-storage.
Yeah.
Really, 5 to 6 core assets. Some of the other stuff that's fringe, like, hospitality, I don't do.
Yeah. Like hotels and whatnot.
Yeah.
Bed and breakfasts.
Yep.
A lot of turnover there. That's interesting. I didn't know you did these commercials. I knew you did some of them. I thought it was
no. Yeah. Exactly. Well, that's, what I've been doing over the course of this year has been sharing this. When I share this with folks in circles like you, they're like, "What? I didn't know you did this." And I was like, "Yeah, I've just like this." It was kind of a slow build, if that makes sense. What we do on houses, you just do it every day, and you got to do like not like a little, like a lot, right?
Yeah.
To really make them meaty. And so we're always talking about the thing we do every day. And so the things that I do like once a year or twice a year just didn't come up that much. And so when I'd share this with people in these inner circles, they're like, "Can you show me? Can you teach me or show me how to do this?" And that's really morphed into this year to sharing this with people. I've created this free challenge, what I call the 20x profit challenge, either meaning 20 houses or one building, right?
Yeah. Right. Same process.
Yeah. I'm not talking about Grant Cardone 20 times more work. In fact, you've said this too. I'm anti-Cardone. I want to do less. So I'm really just talking about trading one asset for another and leveraging up, scaling up.
That's amazing. I'm going to start calling you the Jim Randall of the Midwest.
There you go. I love it.
So on the commercial side now too, with when you're buying these things, so what are some, besides the obvious upside, what about the commercial process when you're buying an asset is a little bit different than just buying even a pack of homes? Like, what do you do due diligence wise to make sure that
good question,
you're not buying a stinker?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So let's talk it through that process. If you buy a pack of homes, you're going to go buy, you're putting a commercial loan in place. That process is the same. Okay. Process is identical. So your underlying tenant, it will be a little different in the sense of, if depending on who your tenant is, you may get some better financing. I own a Dollar Tree in my package, or in my portfolio, and that's a credit tenant. They're publicly traded. Their credit's publicly underwritten. I end up getting excellent financing because of them, because they're my tenant.
They're reliable.
Because they're reliable. They sign a 10-year lease, they're going to pay for 10 years. Versus, if it was Greg's Dollar Store, that's a local mom and pop tenant, and they might not be the same. I'm not getting the same. I may get the same leverage, but my rate's not going to be the same. My AM may not be the same. So there's some things that are a little different there versus just a house, versus just a cash flow. So you get a little better depending on the tenant. All right. So due diligence wise, it's going through that piece is different. We're doing two things because I want to understand the lease. You're buying a building, yes, but you're also buying a lease. You're buying a stream of cash flows. So we want to understand. I mean, I personally read every single lease, and it's for painful, if you think of like 16-year-old Neil, he didn't read a book in his life as a kid. Like, I don't get through school without reading. That was my goal. to do as little work as I could here. This is like, no, there are dollars and there's gold in these leases. And so I want to know what's going to either make or break me. And what I'm often able to do through reading a lease is identify terms of the lease that are not being imposed. And that means where the current landlord didn't make the tenant do something, didn't charge him something. There's an opportunity there. So I'm literally reading that, and that's again a mindset issue. This, what was painful for me at 16 because I didn't really see the direct outcome, right? Is like, good grade. How does that turn into dollars and cents? I don't really know, but I can see that here. You read a lease, and I can find the gold, and I can multiply my income because all I'm going to simply do is when we close is enforce that lease.
That's so, man, I've never even heard of someone talking about, I mean, it's so like almost to the commercial investors, like, yeah, of course, but like to residential real estate investors, like read the lease and look, it's almost like you're getting a treasure map for the clues on how to make money.
Yeah. Well, you think about it on the res side, we read the lease, we'll gloss over it. And most, single family is a single family. And if this tenant leaves, you're like, I don't really care. Cause there's like a lot more tenants who will probably pay more and keep better care of it. So it doesn't matter at all. That's not the case. Not the case on the commercial side. You may be in some cases you're getting married to this tenant, meaning you're signing up for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. In some cases, you may be signing up for quite a while. I want to understand every word that's in there. And then the second piece is understanding the physical asset. It's a lot like houses though. I mean, a furnace is a furnace, Greg, right? I mean, like paint's paint, roof's a roof. They're bigger, they're more expensive, but it's the same stuff.
It's the same concept. It's just multiplied by a lot more square feet.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And you really want to get your head around, for me, it's an industrial building, for example. I'm going into an industrial building. It's if this tenant leaves, who's coming in?
What's the market like for that?
What's the market like? What's it going to take me? What am I going to have to do, if anything? Right.
What is the sales cycle of the lease? How long will it sit vacant? It's almost like when you're flipping a property, what's the days on market? It's like, what's the days on market for a tenant? How is it going to take me 6 months to fill this up? And then can I carry that blank?
Yes. Yeah. Now, some of the leases, for example, if you went and bought an office today, you'd be going, I hope this tenant stays a long time because it's hard to fill an office right now.
That's true.
Industrial on the other side of the equation is just like the bakery I told you about. I've got another one similar, not quite as long-term lease, but a similar situation. They're undervalued. If they leave, I'm going, great. I'm going to bump rents 25%. I can fill that thing literally in a matter of 60 days, probably, and probably get a 10-year lease out of somebody. There's that much demand for industrial property right now.
That's amazing.
You're right. It's understanding that cycle.
Yeah. And it's just the fact that, the circles that a lot of real estate investors watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, it's like they just were never really introduced to this, but if they already have the basic skills of finding deals and finding houses and finding condos and finding duplexes, like you can do the same stuff and apply it to.
They weren't introduced to it, and those who do introduce it, it's too hard. It's like this secret, society, if you will, of commercial people. Because they speak differently and they interact differently. It's not the same. And in my mind, the more I've chipped in and gotten into this, I'm like, they make these words up to make it more complicated than what it really is. And if who Dan Kennedy, one of the greatest marketers of all time, he said, just taste like chicken. Just describe it like it's already something we understand. So, some of these rents, what a triple net means, right? And for those in single family and those who ever touched a single family rental, this isn't that hard to get into. And then you already know way more than what you think you know. It just appears to be harder because I think that, they want to keep this. It feels like a very small little circle in comparison to single family.
Yeah. Right. And there's
a good old boys network.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that. It's like, if you like all the triple net leases is just a lease that the tenant pays all the expenses on. That's all it is.
That's it. Yes, that's it.
Right. There's a guy, I don't know this guy from Adam, but there's a guy, his name is, I think, Matt Onofrio. He's like all over social media now. And he got started in commercial properties maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And he built a big business up. And he was like, I just started buying commercial property. And next thing you know, he got real big. So it's all these, man, and there's another guy, Manny Koshbin or whatever. He's a Iranian guy out in California. He's like a big name guy, but he's a commercial guy.
Yeah.
And it's possible, right? The key for the listeners there is it's possible. So Neil, as we start to wind the show down here, you know, you started a podcast, and I didn't even know you had a podcast until I saw it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Called Real Grit. And I remember
Yeah.
I was like, man, I love that freaking name. And then one of your interviews is with one of my best friends in the world, Michael Pinter. Great guy in my
Great
market.
guy.
Awesome guy. So what was like, tell me about the podcast. Like, how did you start it? When did you start it? And what's your main objective with it? Because I listened to it. I think it's a phenomenal show. You produce it well, and I love it, man.
I appreciate that. We launched it this year. You know, the main objective for me was let me do a couple of things. Let me give back, because I'm just curious about people, what they're doing, what they're up to, and learning some things. So some of this is like, it's kind of for my own benefit, just that I get to have a conversation with somebody like you and then ask the questions that I want to ask. And then, you know, with having a whole bunch of people listen in, and it has been very well received. A lot of positive feedback. They're going, dude, it's just really great where I want to go with the conversation. So I'm very pleased with that. You know, for me, it's connecting with people, expanding my circle, and you know, the ability to do things like this and share what I'm doing, you know, which is now has become very commercial focused. We still do fix and flips for me, and fix and flips is bread and butter. We got the thing on autopilot so I can generate cash. And then I need a forever cash bucket. And so Real Grit allows me to connect with other people in other markets and turn them on to what I'm doing. And once in a while, do a deal with them, like I did out of Indianapolis, that ultimately became as a connection from podcasting.
I mean, isn't it fun to do the podcast? It's like a little, I always look forward to doing them. It's like an hour of my day. I get to connect with someone I either know or want to know.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you and I went to lunch, we would have the same conversation, but now we can have thousands and thousands of people listen to our conversation.
Yeah, it's exactly. I think some people maybe, if you're not in this podcasting world, like that's literally what it is. Like we would talk about the same stuff at lunch.
Yes. Exactly.
Same stuff.
We could do it on Zoom while you're in the Midwest and I'm out in San Diego.
Exactly.
And you got the power of the internet to kind of connect everything. So Neil, if people wanted to, you know, find more about you and they wanted to check out Real Grit, what's the best way to contact you? And then the best way for them to check out all the great content you have going on?
Yeah, no, that's great. You know what? The best place right now is going to be, if you want to learn more about commercial property, you want to go down that path. I've got a free challenge coming up, totally free. 20xprofitchallenge.com. That's going to be where to go. Get signed up. And you just Google Real Grit Podcast. It's on every distribution platform, right? It's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's on Google. And then we've also recorded the video just like this. So it's also on YouTube.
Yeah, I got to say, you got great guests too, because I was watching some of your like Nick Perry, Brent Daniels, Mike Pinter, this guy Greg Hellback. You got
that's right.
You got some good guests on there, so you're definitely doing something right. So keep up the great work. We'll make sure you have all those show links. And if people want to get a hold of you, how do they follow you or reach out to you?
Check me. You can Google me on anything on Neil Timmins, and you can check me out. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on Facebook. Just spell it right, Neil Timmins. And I'll make sure, Greg, you got all the links to be able to find me there on all the platforms.
NeilTimmins, Neil Timmins. We'll make sure we put that in the show notes too. So Neil, I appreciate you being a guest. It was fun talking confessions of a real estate entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right.
Good to see you.
Have a good day, Neil. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, buddy. You bet. Bye-bye.